It's been a while since I did a versus video. Last time I did a versus video, it was Ban versus Sukuna. That got age restricted, I had to re-upload it, and it did not do as well as the first upload. So I've kind of been putting back, wanting to do versus videos for a while, despite me having ideas for a boatload of versus videos. But today, I actually have a brand new versus video for you guys, and this time, it's a collab with my good friend Aeon of Horus. And if you don't know who he is actually a very prominent and pretty much the main guy to go to when it comes to the Touma franchise, or the Certain Magical Index / Scientific Railgun franchise, which is just massive in terms of different light novels, manga, and anime adaptations. And Aeon is basically the go-to guy, encyclopedia on everything around this series. And so we got to talking, and we came up with the idea, what if we took Natsu from Fairy Tail and Touma from the Touma franchise and had them go at each other in a versus battle? And that's what we're going to talk about today. This is different from my previous versus video. This is more so going to be a section for me and Aeon giving up baseline information on the two characters that are going to be facing each other. It's more so a discussion-based versus video instead of just a concrete, I think this, so it's this for this video, unlike the last versus video. So just wanted to give you guys a brief rundown on what this type of video is going to be about. And this was a lot of fun to make. I honestly really enjoyed having this conversation and learning more about Touma and the Touma franchise just based off of this versus video alone. So I hope you guys end up enjoying it. But before we jump into things, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And if you want to see more versus videos, give me some ideas in the comments down below. I have some ideas for future videos, but those will definitely take some time for me to really get together and make videos on, so I can make it as fair as I possibly can. Now with that out of the way, let's jump right into things. So Natsu Dragneel, the Fire Dragon Slayer, the Salamander, one of the strongest members of the Fairy Tail Guild. If you know Fairy Tail, you know Natsu, he's the main character. And he has gone through a lot in the series, and has a boatload of powers, abilities, and even forms that I could get into in this video. But I'm just going to go into a brief, streamlined explanation to Natsu's powers, abilities, and forms. And if you want a fully detailed version of this part of the video, let me know. I do want to make a fully detailed video on Natsu and all of his powers and abilities at this point in the manga. So let me know if you want to see that in the future, and I'll expedite it. But what is there for me to tell you guys about Natsu? Well, Natsu is a Dragon Slayer. Dragon Slayers are a type of wizard in the Fairy Tail world who have magic that, expressly, are meant to slay dragons. And dragons in the Fairy Tail universe are just incredibly powerful, with thick scales that basically repel most magical attacks that humans can in fact do, and they're on the top of the food chain. And so Dragon Slayer magic is magic created to specifically harm dragons, and each different Dragon Slayer has their own specific element that if they end up eating said element, they gain a power boost and replenishing their own magic reserves. Like Natsu, he can eat mostly any fire, and thus give him a massive boost in strength and replenish his magical reserves. And Natsu is a Fire Dragon Slayer, giving him a boatload of powerful fire-based attacks through his Dragon Slayer magic. The dragon flames that Natsu can create can destroy many things, and even at the point where once his flames are hot enough, whether through his own passionate emotions, eating a certain degree of flames, going to a different form, or his own specific ancient type of inherent magic, the Flame of Emotion, which boosts his power with these more intense emotions he feels, his flames can burn so hot to the point where it can even burn away concepts like time in his fight against Fairy Heart Zeref. Natsu has a variety of different attacks like the Fire Dragon's Iron Fist, Wing Attack, Talon, Crushing Fang, and one of my personal favorites, the Fire Dragon's Roar, which is literally just a breath attack that Natsu launches at full force right at his opponent like a magical beam attack. And it is incredibly destructive. Now, outside of this, Natsu also has Dragon Slayer Secret Arts, which are enhanced versions of most of his basic attacks, but they are in the Crimson Lotus series, and they increase his fiery potential to another level, to the point where it is more destructive than his own baseline fire. And as a Dragon Slayer, Natsu also has enhanced physical abilities as well as senses. While Natsu is physically very strong and durable, his senses are on another level, with insanely enhanced senses of smell, hearing, and even taste, as well as his eyesight being practically perfect as well. This helps him in a lot of fights, especially if he cannot see or hear anything. His other senses can, in fact, compensate for that one loss or diminishment depending on his fights. Natsu's also a pretty good fighter. Even though he is mostly a brawler, he does know how to fight and to pick out when is the best time to attack his opponents. Granted, he has to fight them for a bit to get an idea of what they're going for in terms of their fighting style and their magic, but overall, Natsu can get a handle on what his opponents can have, and thus try and find a way to counter or overpower them. Now, Natsu has a variety of different forms, but there are 3 that he goes into in every single arc, pretty much, that he constantly uses, and one of them tends to be sometimes his base. Now, the most commonly used one now tends to be the Lightning Flame Dragon mode, where Natsu, after being given and devouring the Lightning Dragon magic of Loxus, ended up unlocking a Flame Lightning Dragon mode that allowed him to increase his not only destructive power, but his speed to an insane level, comparable to that of Loxus. Since he is a Lightning Dragon Slayer, Loxus was incredibly fast, and so this boosted Natsu's own magic firepower and his speed, giving him a massive boost that allows him to get a handle on most fights. This tends to be his go-to when he wants to try and rev things up when he sees a tough opponent. But another form he tends to take is his Fire Dragon King mode, which it isn't really a transformation, it's more so Natsu getting into high gear and taking things seriously. And in a lot of fights, when Natsu wants to ramp things up, he goes and uses a Fire Dragon King version of his usual base attacks, like the Iron Fist and the Roar attacks that we've seen previously, but these are turned up to another level, to the likes of the Fire Dragon King Igneal, that is his adopted father, that could potentially be used to burn almost anything in sight. Now, his flames aren't as powerful as they were, at least at this point, when he used it for the first time against Zeref, since he had Igneal's dying soul and magic power left within his body, which could have killed an immortal, but his Dragon Flames in Dragon King mode is still incredibly strong, as this tends to be his go-to whenever he gets serious for a fight, or at least leaning into finishing off a fight. It's still Natsu at his peak, but there is another level beyond it, and that is his Dragon Force, the ultimate form or transformation that all Dragon Slayers can be capable of doing. We have only seen this for 4 of our current Dragon Slayers, which are Natsu, Wendy, Sting, and Rogue. 5th generation Dragon Slayers can do this, but they will end up turning into dragons as a side effect, so they are forbidden from doing so. But right now, it is just the 4 Dragon Slayers I mentioned, and Natsu now has full control over his Dragon Force transformation, and when a fight is incredibly difficult, and when he has the power, he can now turn into Dragon Force whenever he wants. This gives him slitted eyes and dragon scales on his face and arms, potentially giving him a more dragon-like claw aspect to his appearance, boosting his firepower to an absurd level that when push comes to shove, he can burn practically anything away. And he tends to stack his Dragon King mode on top of Dragon Force, allowing him to become even more powerful. In essence, more or less being a true Dragon Force for Natsu, as not only is he reaching the true pinnacle form of Dragon Slayers, but having the Flames of Fire Dragon King mode essentially makes him closer to that of an actual dragon than most Dragon Slayers in this instance. But in extreme situations, Natsu could potentially even use his own soul and even body as fuel to make his flames burn even hotter, similar to what he did in his fight against Zeref, which allowed him to overpower Zeref at the very end of the fight. But despite all that, Natsu has grown significantly stronger post-main series Fairy Tail and over the course of the 100 Years Quest, to the point of making him a true powerhouse in one of the top tiers of the verse. And even right now in the manga, most characters can't really beat Natsu when he is going all out. With the only real characters that can really give him a challenge and are potentially stronger are the dragon gods that are currently available right now, as well as potentially the character of Ferris, which I can get into in a different video in and of itself. But yeah, that's the basic streamlined version of what Natsu can in fact do, as well as his forms of transformations. Next up, we got Aeon as he goes over Touma in his Dragon King and his Imagine Breaker abilities.
Let's do a quick rundown of Touma's abilities for those of you who may be unfamiliar with him. In base form, he's pretty much a one-trick pony, reliant on one ability located in his right hand, known as Imagine Breaker. Any supernatural power, whether magic or science-based, is negated, with very few exceptions. Touma's power null is so strong that he even destroyed a magic spear capable of shattering a multiverse. Therefore, against enemies like Natsu, who use fire magic, he's in his comfort zone, having fought and defeated fire magicians such as Style and Fiamma. But Touma's main weakness is his lack of physical attributes. Sure, he's a half-decent street fighter, but he's no martial artist. In fact, he loses badly to opponents who are skilled brawlers. Due to his weird body, he does have an inhuman amount of stamina and can continue fighting even with injuries that would normally cripple or even kill an average human. But again, anyone with superhuman levels of strength and speed, such as Saint, pretty much steamroll through Touma, if he's in base of course. Touma himself cannot move at supersonic speeds, but he does have some tricks to compensate for it. Imagine Breaker can act as a lightning rod for some attacks, attracting supernatural powers towards his right hand, meaning Touma doesn't necessarily have to be faster than the attack or fully react in time to save his ass. It kinda works like aim assist in a video game. Then you have his precognition, which is a natural ability that Touma gained from his muscle memory and experience of fighting nearly every day. This allows him to anticipate attacks before they even happen, which makes it much easier to react if he knows his opponents will move in a certain way. What his implied precognition is reliant on his opponents having AIM energy, or the psychic energy which espers like him emit. So they have to be espers for it to work, as Touma can't react to all Saints, even though he can react to Misaka and Accelerator's attacks, who can either move or use attacks similar to a Saint's speed. Now, let's talk about what's most relevant for this matchup. That being Touma's arguably strongest form to date, his Dragon King. The Dragon King is one of 8 confirmed dragons that are sealed within Touma's right arm. When his right arm is severed along with a Magic Breaker, one dragon or multiple can emerge in addition to other weird entities, depending on the circumstance. The Dragon King is superior to the other dragons based on what we have seen so far in the light novels, with it having an impressive array of abilities and feats. You definitely don't want this dragon to bite you, since it has the power to erase the memories of its victims, basically turning them into an entirely different person. And that's not all. Within the dragon's mouth is a void that erases what it eats from the world itself. It can also nullify supernatural powers such as Misaka's Black Ball energy and CRC's Cloud Defense magic, which will normally prevent him from being hit. It also moves by itself to protect Touma, reacting to attacks which would normally be too fast for Touma to deal with, but the dragon is unable to defend its host if an attack is fired at point blank range. What if that does happen? Touma can just revive himself in the dead one time by sacrificing one of the tails of the other dragons. As yes, Touma has at least 8 dragons within his arm, with that number going up to 13 and maybe even more if we take into account quotes from the Railgun manga editor. It's also implied the Dragon King has powers of the other dragons, considering it displayed a wide range of abilities that are similar to what the others are capable of doing, as the Dragon King can breathe poison, fire laser beams, distort space around him, and control the weather. One of its most impressive powers is the ability to control all living and inanimate objects in its environment, with it splitting apart a hospital and reattaching it together like nothing had happened. Touma can also apparently power the dragon by eating other things, as he chewed an electric furnace with his own mouth, which then caused the dragon to fire a much more powerful beam of light. This is kinda situational, as we don't know how it's applied if he eats something else, but hey, it's handy to know. Touma and the dragon can also blend in with its surrounding environment with camouflage, and its scales can shoot out like a projectile. The dragon's presence alone also causes people around him to be pinned in place by fear, making the dragon's next attack a surefire one to hit. However, it should be noted that CRC, Touma's opponent in this fight, had a resistance to this power, and if you somehow manage to hurt Touma's dragon, like CRC did, with an attack which was above the Tree of Sephiroth, it can apparently regenerate itself, as the dragon's maw was split in 2, but later on it seems to be just fine. If you would like to know more about Touma's powers, then I recommend watching these videos on screen right now.
Just going off with base forms with Natsu and Touma, Touma doesn't exactly have like superhuman strength whatsoever, so I say it's fair to say that even with the Imagine Breaker, Natsu would probably easily be able to like deal good damage to Touma in that instance.
Yeah, physically Natsu is superior to Touma in both strength and speed, going off Natsu's abilities, but Touma does have his precognition, which does give him some preparation ahead of any attacks that Natsu would launch at him, and his Magic Breaker also acts as a lightning rod towards certain attacks, attracting them towards it. But in a fist fight, like, Touma got absolutely destroyed by Saint-level characters like Kanzaki and Aqua, who use magic as well. And he got absolutely destroyed. So Natsu, being a character that has similar qualities to a Saint, I think it's not looking too good for Touma.
Yeah, like, the only real thing Natsu's abilities that wouldn't work on Touma initially would be like his Fire Dragon's Roar, his Wing Attack, or Talon, because those a lot of times are like extended flame attacks towards his opponent and not just straight up his fist. Only really like his like straight up brawling or even his Iron Dragon Fist. Flames will just be negated, but the force of the punch will still end up like pretty much shattering his arm if they clash fists. Safe to say, at least base form, Natsu takes it pretty easily. Even with what you said, the precognition, Touma would only be able to avoid Natsu's like hits for like so long that it would exhaust him pretty quickly with how relentless Natsu can be. But it is possible that at the bare minimum, he doesn't kill him and he just breaks Toma's arm, or literally force the punch rips it off.
Yeah, this is the problem of Touma being a Joker character. He can beat, like, technically glass cannon characters that are super powerful, because his Magic Breaker has such a powerful negation. I mean, he's negated multiverse destroying weapons before, but at the same time, his physical strength is pretty much an average human. I mean, he's beaten like magicians that are taller than him or physically stronger than a Japanese 15-year-old, sure, but I think Natsu can tolerate Touma's punch. Like, I think he would have to punch him all day for it to have any impact.
Yeah, and like Touma, like based on his abilities and his baseline stats, he's basically a glass cannon. If he faces up against an opponent that's physically stronger than him, he more or less stands no chance in an actual fight. Which gets us to the next instance, like beyond his basic Magic Breaker abilities with the Dragon King. You mind going over really quick what he's capable of with that?
Touma's dragons only come out when his right arm, is severed or is destroyed in some capacity. And it can trigger a variety of different effects. It's not always the dragon, it can be the invisible thing. But if we're going stronger, if we're going Touma at his strongest, then we'll go over the Dragon King, which is basically an amalgamation of the previous dragons, or at least it's implied that it has the abilities of the other dragons we saw in Railgun T. It is incredibly powerful, being compared to some of the strongest characters in the universe. So its mouth can basically act as a void, erasing anything it eats from the world, and it has a variety of different abilities, such as manipulating fear around its vicinity, controlling the weather, turning invisible, copying abilities as well. If Touma does eat a certain object, he can copy it, which is interesting, because he ate electric furnace and then was able to fire out an even stronger laser beam.
Damn, that is crazy. Baseline, since it has the abilities of all the other dragons, I say main thing, Natsu's a dragon slayer, so it automatically gives him an edge once that dragon it manifests, right? The Dragon King just manifests it like a relative spiritual or physical form, right?
Yes, it's technically got a physical form, but it can interact with non-physical entities, and it was able to tear apart CRC's cloud magic, which made him impossible to touch. But the Dragon King does have a physical form, but it can also like disappear as well. It can go between, I think, but it can't be like intangible.
So it being a dragon gives Natsu the edge, since he uses Dragon Slayer magic with magic explicitly designed to harm and kill dragons. Now at this point, I say Natsu is like strong enough to actually most likely deal damage to this Dragon King, but it all depends on whether or not he can avoid all of the attacks from the Dragon King. And like you said, there are it has a variety of abilities that Natsu would have to avoid, depending on which abilities and how quickly. I remember you said it has the ability to alter the space around it at times, right? The Dragon King?
It can distort the space around the dragon in the environment it's at, and it can also control non-living objects. So Touma was able to split apart a hospital to make sure the patients in the hospital weren't hurt when a powerful attack was launched by CRC, and then stitch it back together. So he can distort the space like passively that way, which is just like a little effect. Also, the environment can be manipulated by the dragon itself as well.
I see that is going to be like the first real hurdle that Natsu will have to face, because being able to warp space around him and manipulate the area, that will give Natsu a bit of difficulty to maneuver around, because in the 100 Years Quest manga, also spoilers for anybody who's not caught up to the manga, I have to mention this, he was fighting a 2v1 battle against one of the dragon gods that was able to manipulate the area around him, or the earth around him, and so that was making it difficult for him to like get through and deal damage initially. So being able to manipulate the environment around them will give Natsu less of a foothold, and that'll definitely like give Touma a bit of an edge to at least try and at least deal some damage with the Dragon King. The only thing I really see is that Natsu would have to go Fire Dragon King mode to really deal some real significant damage, or maybe Lightning Flame Dragon mode at bare minimum to like increase his speed to get around this distorted area, because since that boosts his overall speed and destructive power from base. Basic from that, Natsu will be able to deal a good amount of damage to the Dragon King if he enters Lightning Flame Dragon mode at least, to get around and be able to move around in a distorted area that it creates. Any other abilities do you think could give Touma the edge in a fight like that?
Yeah, one ability I didn't mention was that, well, it was kind of brushed over kind of quickly in the light novel, but if you pay attention, you can also see it. It's when CRC is about to face the Dragon King for the first time and launches an attack, and it kind of went off course and didn't do anything. Not because the dragon opened its mouth, which has a void which consumes pretty much anything that goes in. It's that attacks that don't have like a powerful intention to kill just go off course. So that is something to take into consideration. If Natsu isn't going for the kill off the bat, he would have to adapt to make sure. But that's more of a personality thing, if anything. But the dragon does move for Touma. Like, Touma doesn't have to react. Although attacks at point blank range are Touma's weakness in a situation. And the fact that he does have like a 15-minute time limit where he will bleed out from the loss of blood. So those are the two major weaknesses in this form. If damage is done to the dragon or Touma, he can sacrifice a tail of one of the other dragons to keep him alive, but that's just a one-time thing.
So in that instance, personality-wise, yeah, Natsu initially probably wouldn't go for the kill, but in this battle, we're basically just assuming that he's going for the kill anyway. But either way, being able to at least revive Touma at least once in the fight will definitely at least catch Natsu off guard. I think he has enough reaction speed to avoid like a sneak attack from a revived Touma with the Dragon King's power, but that would only depend how quickly the revival is and how fast Touma will be able to react to deal a finishing blow to Natsu from behind. And you did say that the jaws of the Dragon King can erase memories, so if Natsu would have to avoid getting bit by the Dragon God, even at relative close range to the Dragon King, it's all a matter of being able quick enough to deal the finishing blow without getting caught off guard by a revival. At least that's basically what I think right now. Though the other abilities of the dragons that the Dragon King can use, any of those you think would pose like an issue to Natsu with how their like base on abilities can be?
It's hard to say because for a lot of the dragons, we haven't actually seen them in practice. It's basically just going off a tweet from the editor of the Railgun manga, because there are like some effects or abilities that do sound pretty useful in terms of like having illusions and hypnotism, causing like mind or psychological effects, throwing people into terror confusion. That somewhat happened when the Dragon King appeared, but it wasn't like significant enough because CRC kind of resisted it. Or like, oh, the ice crystal dragon being as tough and solid as the planet itself, and yet we obviously haven't seen that for show. It's just going off statements. You get what I mean? Yeah, and
those statements are always subject to change once they're like fleshed out further in the light novels. Yeah, I say the baseline abilities like hypnosis or illusions, I'd say they would, if not just not expecting them, it'll trip him up like initially. Like he has been shown like to be initially fooled by illusions before, but if he takes a second, he will like find his way out of an illusion. Like recently in the 100 Years West manga, someone managed to do like a big illusion, convincing him that the entire area was scorched to ash. But just by smell, he noticed that it was an illusion, despite how realistic it is. So unless the illusion can like mess with Natsu's senses of smell, hearing, and sight, and even taste, then no matter how realistic it looks, it won't really be able to do anything to Natsu. He'll be able to snap out of it initially. And hypnosis, he's never really been able to be taken under hypnosis. Worst case was when Larcade was slowly putting him to sleep with his magic abilities, but Natsu was still able to keep himself awake. It was getting him drowsy, but he was still able to not succumb to it initially. In that instance, for basic hypnosis, it would depend on how strong and how fast it works for it to actually be able to trip up Natsu initially. At best, I see those as more so quick distractions to get distance, or to try and do a sneak attack on Natsu for the dragon to bite him and make him lose his memories.
Yeah, I think if Natsu is distracted, then surely that gives the Dragon King an opportunity to bite him. And gotta remember that any attack that Natsu launches towards Touma as well, the Dragon King will go out and defend him passively, and it will just eat the flames that Natsu launches.
Yeah, that is also a thing, which ends up making it that this needs to be a close quarters combat situation. Even if Natsu tries to launch a powerful roar attack or a brilliant flame attack, the Dragon King can still just devour it into an empty void, like you said. So it just comes down to just a square up incredibly powerful fist fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So in that instance, I don't think Lightning Flame Dragon mode would be enough to deal with all the extra abilities that would trip up Natsu. I would say he would have to go Dragon Force for a definitive win, because that sharpens up all of his senses, his physical strength, his durability, his speed, because it gives him basic attributes of a dragon, and the dragons in Fairy Tail are absolutely broken as hell. Even the ones that aren't considered dragon gods or kings, they're still relatively strong as they are. So it would end up coming down to Natsu having to just go all in for a Fire Dragon King attack at close quarters in Dragon Force to deal real instant damage to Touma and avoid getting hit by the Dragon King's, attacks.
Question is, though, how hard can Natsu actually hit? What's his best, attack feat in terms of power?
I mean, I know he casually destroys towns from shockwaves, but, I'd say in the manga, the shockwave of a combo attack he did, shook an entire continent and a half. It is kind of difficult to, fully, set in stone how strong Natsu is, because at the end of the day, his powers can be considered, with no real limitations, because his baseline ability is the Flame of Emotion, so the more worked up he is in a fight, the more he puts his, all into a fight with his emotions, his flames will burn hotter and hotter, to the point where it could burn concepts themselves. But in terms of his pure physical strength, he could break a building if he really wanted to. Because it is difficult to tell with a lot of anime scaling, because you can have someone punch someone that's as strong as a universe, but not destroy a building. So that's really the confusing thing to really think about. But I do think Natsu is incredibly destructive with just his sheer brute force alone. He could go fist to fist with some of the stronger characters in the universe that could physically can break mountains if need be with a punch. Or shake them, if anything.
To be honest, attack potency is kind of irrelevant in this matchup because of the Dragon King's Void Mouth. I'm not sure if Natsu could split apart the dragon like CRC did, because he launched an attack that came from beyond the tree of Sephiroth, which, I mean, Koronzon launched an attack similar to that, and that was compared to Gungnir, and then CRC launched created this magic beam which split the dragon in half, which is a similar attack to the flaming sword. So that's multiverse level, but at the same time, obviously Touma's kryptonite is the physical attacks up close, and you don't need to be super strong to cause damage up close if you do get a point blank attack. So it's either that or Natsu has to run away for 15 minutes, but I don't know if that's in his locker, to be fair.
Yeah, that's not really in his nature.
It's theoretically possible.
Yeah.
So I think the Dragon King wins this.
I do say that it just comes down to Natsu being able to avoid literally the distractions that can be done to land a significant blow on Touma. I do think Natsu initially would get up close and try to deal damage to the Dragon King, though I do think it would present difficulties with all of its with all its different abilities. Natsu can't separate the Dragon King from Touma. That's not in his wheelhouse. But yeah, I do say overall Natsu should be fast enough to at least be able to take down Touma in within a single blow, full force, like square at him. It just all comes down to really if the Dragon King resurrects and Natsu notices, like quick enough to really do anything. Which is why I say Dragon Force Natsu would probably be his best bet to like actually be able to like deal with it without too much difficulty, since it increases all his senses, durability, strength, and speed to its like highest levels. It is a difficult question to really think about when it comes to all the different abilities, but I do think Natsu would be able to take the fight towards the end.
Really?
That's only if he manages to avoid all the attacks. Because like he is fast and he does have a lot of endurance, but like but I do think the Dragon King does have like a lot in its favor to really deal any real damage to Natsu and actually be able to take him down. It all just comes down to him being able to like land a hit on Touma, like to avoid everything the Dragon King has against him.
Yeah, I mean, with his ability to control the weather as well and strike down with lightning, I know Fairy Tail has lightning users, but I just think that like it's going to be a very difficult task for Natsu to do any damage to Touma. I mean, unless he gets the point blank range hit, because the dragon can regenerate from getting split in half. I mean, we haven't seen the extent of its regeneration or how good it is. I mean, you got like poison breath as well. It can launch a variety of laser beams, so it can attack from distance. It's not just like biting as well.
Yeah, that is true.
Gravity. And then a space thing. So depends what the area they're fighting in. But I guess if Natsu does try and run away, I mean CRC did run away, but it didn't run away for long. Like Touma did catch up with him. But Touma can always manipulate the environment to bring Natsu closer towards him, like he did at the hospital. I mean, Touma didn't do that with CRC, but I mean he only did it one time to protect the people. But I'd like to see if he would be able to use that power in that way to compensate people like running away from him. But like you said, Natsu isn't the type to do that to begin with. So the only win condition he's got is getting the hit up close. But then he might do, but then Touma can just regenerate one time and then...
Yeah, it all just depends on if he'd be able to like react quick enough to the regeneration to be able to avoid getting hit with a finishing blow from Touma and the Dragon King. That's why I suggested Dragon Force Natsu, because I do think his like senses would be heightened enough to be able to tell. But how quickly would the regeneration be? Like a few seconds, and it'd be instantaneous, right?
Yeah, I think it took a few seconds after. I mean, obviously it's hard to gauge time when it's a light novel unless it's specified. It's easier to gauge time if it's like an animation because you can just count. But even then, like if you take Lord of the Rings, like the first movie, like there's years past that movie in like 20 minutes. You get me? So it can be hard to gauge time generally, but I think it lingered for a little bit and then it regenerated, if memory serves me well, after it got hit by the laser beam that CRC launched from the Tree of Sephiroth.
So with everything in mind, despite Natsu's abilities basically making him like relatively outscaling Touma, even mainly with like pure physical force, the Dragon King does have a lot of abilities that can like really get Natsu tripped up, and at the end of the day, it does depend on the regeneration factor, because even if Natsu's like, despite coming off as an idiot, he is like good at combat. He will learn in the middle of a fight how his opponents work, which is how he's able to get out of certain situations. So he would most likely, even if he does go up close and fights the Dragon King first, he would realize that taking it on wouldn't be the best option to win. So he'd probably aim for Touma. But at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to the regeneration and sneak attack option for Touma once he comes back and is able to deal a blow against Natsu. I think it really comes down to that at the end of the day.
I mean, the dragon does passively defend Touma, and it does like move like super quick, like quicker, or like on the same level of speed as Koronzon, who traveled from like Japan to the UK. The time limit was stated, but it was pretty instantaneous. And CRC could like launch attacks which blitz allies using Koronzon's body. So that put, and obviously the Dragon King could react to CRC's attacks without hesitating. Like it wasn't even close, apart from like the sneak attack, of course, where he was like right next to Toma's face and then launched it, and then that blew Toma's head off, which he was able to grow back.
Yeah, damn.
But I think Like the Dragon King just has like so many attack options as well to catch Natsu off guard, and if he can use the illusions as well, or even just the space manipulation or gravity.
The gravity ability, I don't really think Natsu would have problems with, because he dealt with a gravity user once before, and he after a year of training, he was able to like completely outscale the guy. Like, the guy was able to create like a miniature black hole, and in base he managed to use a fire dragon. I wouldn't say base. He used a fire dragon king roar to basically burn away the black hole. Like, at least at least with gravity, I think Natsu won't be able to have much issue with that. It's just all the other abilities that'll trip up his senses and his ability to like maneuver around that will really test his ability of fighting in whatever location they're in. And I do think Natsu would be fast enough to at least, even if it's like for a split second, deal a finishing blow to Touma. But yeah, we said this before, it all really comes down to like the regeneration aspect and Touma being able to deal an attack after regenerating to take down Natsu. So it is difficult for like a full definitive answer with all the abilities that the Dragon King has, even with Natsu dealing with a lot of powerful enemies himself. Yeah, it all just comes down to basically the get back, more or less.
Yeah, I just think the specs of the dragon are just superior to Natsu in terms of where the dragon is considered. It was stated to be on par with Alice, who is like this crazy reality warper and who can like throw an object to like the other side of the galaxy, could like defeat multiple transcendents who are like planet level at the same time. So it was stated to be the only thing that potentially could rival her power. Honestly, I think just the specs of the dragon alone make it a clear winner, in my opinion.
Interesting. I do see that. It does have a lot of abilities, especially with some abilities that we have no clear idea of, it being fully explained. So I will say, because like even then fairy tale scaling can be kind of wonky at times, especially now in the manga with the dragon gods, because even then like the scaling just keeps getting a bit higher. But even then, I don't think with like reality warpers, I don't think Natsu's had really much experience dealing with people that actually bend reality to their will. So I do think that will be one of the deciding factors. So yeah, I can see the Dragon King being able to take down Natsu. It will also come down to just if Natsu will be able to avoid the attacks from the Dragon King, and if he can take out Touma twice within like an instant. Because like the revival is definitely something that no one ever sees coming. If it's not like instantaneous revival, like if it takes a second, Natsu could let his guard down, and then it will probably be a big enough opening for like Touma, the Dragon King, to like finish him off.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
I do think Natsu is like overall, like in terms of strength, stronger. The Dragon King's abilities, I do more or less kind of take the cake at the end of the day, even with like the unknowns that we still have to take into consideration.
There's a lot about the dragons we don't know. It's still one of the biggest mysteries in the entire franchise, so we haven't seen all of what it can do potentially, which is kind of scary to think about. But hey ho, maybe in the future we will see what its origin actually is and its full capacity.
Yeah, that could take another 20 years.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we're no rush, Kamachi. Come on, we'll be following this series till we're like 50. Honestly, maybe till the rest of my entire life.
Yeah.
To be an Index fan, it's a hell of a commitment.
Yeah.
You're in for the long run.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Though I will say, because I know people are gonna bring this up after this like decision, I am not talking or counting END Natsu. We have not actually seen any real feats beside him burning through frozen time, and he hasn't had access to that type of power since. The manga is alluding to him gaining some level of that or beyond right now in 100 Years Quest, with him needing to devour a specific character's flames. But like, even with the hints, I'm not counting END Natsu, because that's going to be like peak absolute strongest form Natsu. And I do think END could like beat reality warpers essentially, since he's basically burning any and all concepts, time, space, whatever. He can burn that shit away with ease based on how Zeref designed it. But like, I'm not counting END. We have no clear feats or stuff or abilities. We barely got anything with the fight against Gray and Natsu with that instance. So I am not counting it whatsoever. Just right now, before this arc in the manga with Natsu essentially, with peak is Dragon Force with Dragon King mode stacked on top. I do think it will come down to the Dragon King beating Natsu. But even then, if you argue Natsu beating Dragon King Touma, I can see that it comes down to just the speed and the surprise factor with how Touma regenerates and revives. So that is a decision at the end of this big versus battle between two unlikely verses to face each other, with dragons in common with their basic lores and abilities with the main protagonists. So yeah, base decision, Touma with the Dragon King with all his various abilities and ways to trip up Natsu would win, but Natsu would have the capability of taking out Touma if he reacts fast enough. But for now, we're giving the win to Touma and the Dragon King abilities due to everything we know so far about it. If something changes in the future with Natsu, then we could easily give Natsu the win, but for now, Touma and the Dragon King. If you like this video and want to see more, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you like the Towaru franchise as a whole, and if you're a big fan of it, go and check out Aeons Horus' YouTube channel. Link will be in the description down below. He does a lot of explanation videos. He goes over the light novels, characters, abilities, etc. So you'll have a good time if you end up with this channel. Any words to say?
Yeah, just thanks for having me on. It's been a fun collab, and I hope to do more in the future.
But yeah, with all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I hope you all have an awesome day. Look forward to the next one.